Wait till the clock changes to 6.
Okay.
There we go. I see 6 p.m. Well, good evening. Welcome to our week of Special Places celebrations. We're doing broadcasts every night around 6 o'clock and often 7 o'clock too. And I'm glad you can join us. The West Virginia Land Trust has been working really hard, and we've had a banner year this year with acquisitions and with expanded conservation properties. What we look to do is to conserve properties that are going to serve some sort of public benefit. This is our real priority. And so when we find properties that we think have potential to serve as watershed protection, wildlife habitat, recreational opportunity, educational pieces, cultural conservation, these are all priorities that we establish, and we evaluate potential property acquisitions against those criteria. So tonight, I'm really pleased to welcome Danny Twilley from West Virginia University and the Outdoor Economic Development Collaborative to talk a little bit about what their activity is and how it might relate to the land protection that the West Virginia Land Trust brings to its work. Our view is that by setting land aside, there are lots of ways it can be used, and recreation is a key option for West Virginia's new economy and for training young people and for moving the state forward, because it builds on our incredible natural resource base. So Danny Twilley, I'm really glad you could be with us here tonight to talk about the work that you all are doing in your relatively new position here at West Virginia University, and we're glad you could join us.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Brent, and to just have the opportunity to be a part of this conversation, to share with you and the Land Trust community about what we're doing. And I will share with you my appreciation for the great work of the West Virginia Land Trust.
Thank you. So, Outdoor Economic Development Collaborative. This is kind of a big title, and I'm curious if you can describe what it means, being based in an academic institution at West Virginia University, and how it came about.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been built off of the Outdoor Economic Development Collaborative. Was built off of, honestly, the long history that Venture West Virginia has had and its success. So as an institution, we've shown the way that outdoors can help create a sense of belonging and connection to the university and the state. And so a natural transition to this was this idea of, well, if it can work for our students and our university, how can we utilize that for the state? So about 9 months ago, the office was created, and I was very fortunate to be asked to serve as part of that office. And really, its impetus is, we have some of the greatest outdoor recreation resources in the state of West Virginia that are comparable to some of the states that we often think of. So how then do we look at the way other states have used their outdoor recreation resources as an economic driver? And so the goal of our office is to utilize West Virginia University's social and intellectual capital as a way to leverage the state's outdoor recreation resources to make it a more desirable place to work, live, play, start a business, go to school. And we've seen this kind of play out in other states that we'll talk about just a little bit, such as Western North Carolina, Colorado, and Utah. And those are kind of our benchmark areas in which we call them our aspirational peers. And we have no doubt that we can get there. So that's kind of the impetus of the office in terms of the outdoor economy piece. But I think it's important also to recognize the office also was able to bring in 2 other programs that are very near and dear that make up our office. And one's Science Behind the Sport. And so the goal of that is to get is to utilize adventure activities as a way to teach science. And then the other is the Science Adventure School. And the goal is to get every 6th grader in the state of West Virginia to spend a week engaged in kind of science and adventure together. So those are also, so that kind of rounds out our office, those two programs, and then the outdoor economy piece.
Where's the Science Adventure School based?
So it takes place at the summit of Bexar Reserve down in the New River Gorge area.
The Boy Scout Preserve.
Yep, the Boy Scouts, yes.
Okay, all right. I don't know if you're aware, but just this year we closed on an easement on the Boy Scout Preserve. It's 1,600 acres out of their 10,000 acre property, and it's a wilderness area. It's reserved for non-motorized recreation. So much of the Bechtel Reserve has been developed for adventure type activities, which are really great. And 100,000 Boy Scouts who come to the Jamboree really enjoy that. But we wanted to be able to conserve a piece that is that Appalachian hardwood forest that just has trails and primitive camping. And so the restrictions on that 1,600 acre part of the 10,000 acre parcel are going to keep that part of wild and wonderful West Virginia alive there. So that's great to know that can happen and that's underway. So that focuses on sixth graders. Yes, that program, absolutely. All right. And when you talk about outdoor economic development collaborative, collaborative is a different term. Normally it's a center or a program or a project or an initiative or any other number of words, but collaborative has a special meaning. What's that mean to you? So really what it means is that we can't do this alone. And we have some great minds and communities. And so what it really does, it opens the door for us to partner across the institution and across the state and across the nation and into industry. And how do we solve this complex puzzle? Because if we do this right, then there's a great health outcomes. We can influence and create positive health changes. So that's not our expertise, but we have experts. So how do we connect with them? We also have examples of the Davis College, and they have a tremendous amount of expertise there. So how do we connect with them? The College of Business. How do we then connect to them for the business development side of it? And then in addition, you think about extension. Extension in the state has, representation in all the counties of West Virginia. So how do we partner with their relationships? And the list just goes on and on and on about the ways in which we can partner. What we're looking at is that we're kind of that hub in terms of creating that table of the willing, those who see the potential of the way the outdoors can be transformative for the state and the people of this state. And at times they will come to us and facilitate opportunities. And at times we'll have to go to them and say, this is what we need. How can we partner together? And so the collaborative is a core value for who we are. And we continue to operate in that manner because we want to collaborate and support communities. We want to collaborate and support, great organizations like yours and other nonprofits in order to realize our lofty goal of how does outdoor recreation play a vital role in the economic development and growth of West Virginia. I think of the university as having that sort of three-pronged mission where there's research, teaching, and service. And certainly the service piece, when you talk about the collaborative, is very clear. Does it relate to research and teaching at WVU as well? Oh, absolutely. So I'll take on the teaching. And so our goal is to continue to connect with students. And I'll just give you an example. Last semester, we worked with two different classes and did projects. This semester, we're doing two more. One of those individuals was so talented. We actually worked with her. She applied to grad school and she's a GA in our office. So we're working in order to provide real timely student projects that will actually help us grow and develop. So that's a piece of it. As we start thinking about recreation infrastructure development, how do we then create that institutional and knowledge base within the university, but also within the state for being, a hub for conservation? I think we really have the potential to be, looked at as the creating
the next generation of conservationists in terms of, and that goes across public and private land types of conservation. So how do we do that as and then from a research standpoint, because we're starting at a relatively, because we're new, we can do a lot around the research components, whether it is how, measuring the health benefits, measuring the ecological benefits, measuring the economic benefits. So, over time, we'll continue to connect with those experts on campus in order to be able to create real and meaningful research that supports this initiative.
That's great. I know that just thinking about this is a really interesting area for the university to get into. And I'm assuming that there's a lot of background information that creates the rationale for creating this kind of a collaborative. I mean, outdoor economic development seems to be a path forward that a lot of folks have embraced, but maybe not everyone across the state in terms of our transition economy, in terms of a future for the state. So can you talk a little bit about that rationale and the information that compels the university to look at this and create this kind of collaborative, which seems really far-reaching?
Yeah, so the impetus is we're a land grant institution, and so with that, we have a responsibility to the state and our role within the state. So it's a natural fulfillment of that mission, that core mission, that value of an institution. So how do we get from that core value to the outdoors? And so what we know is in 2017, the Outdoor Industry Association published a report where they tried to capture in total what the outdoor economy looks like. And so they put out there, they're estimating about 800
across the nation.
Across the nation, yep, absolutely. So across the United States, they're estimating about $887 billion in annual consumer spending. When you take that down and you compare it to other industries, we're right behind healthcare and financial services and insurance. So again, we start looking at, well, this is a large industry. As we've seen, we did some comparison and started looking at that as how does that play out into, how does that compare to other states when we break it down to the state metrics? What we found was the average growth for the outdoor economy was around 16.6%. And so when you look at the state averages, what we saw was Colorado grew at 30% and this was between 2012 and 2017, their outdoor economy or nature-based GDP. Utah was at 29%. When you look at the states surrounding us, North Carolina was 19, Virginia 16, Pennsylvania 16. West Virginia's grew at 1% during that time period. We were 49th in the country. We were right above Louisiana, and Louisiana lost 10%. Kansas doubled us. And so what that means is that's the opportunity. And so let's take that and to the next level. So let's take a look at states who've done this and done this well. So let's look at Colorado and Utah. Well, we know that West Virginia has lost more population than any other state. We're at 50. We're ranked 50th in terms of population growth. We have a negative population growth. And so when we look at kind of that same time period, Utah grew at the highest level in the country, followed by Texas was number 2 and Colorado number 3. So, again, that's correlation, doesn't mean causation. But then we start looking at what we would call evidence baseline assumptions. And so you look at the generation born between 1980 and 2000 is outspending Generation Xers and baby boomers on things like travel, activity, and sport. Why that's so compelling is, that generation between 1980 and 2000, they're young in careers, graduating college, starting families. They tend not to have a lot of money or not to have a lot of time, where the older generation has money and time, and they're being outspent by the younger generation on things like travel, activity, and sport. So what that's showing me is that there's a value shift. People are valuing experiences. And one of the really compelling, and I'll stop here after this, was an article that came out from the University of Utah where they interviewed and surveyed the 50 fastest growing businesses, kind of tech businesses, along what they call the Silicon Slope. That's kind of from Provo to Ogden, and said, why are you here? Like, what's compelling your business? And they said, well, we're here because of one of the main reasons was they're there because of the outdoors, because the business owners wanted to be there, but also that's where the young people were and that's where the talent was. They wanted to have access to the skiing, the climbing, the biking out their back door. And so it as much as a talent recruitment. And so if we're looking around, and we've been doing asset mapping and started looking at what type of rock climbing, what type of trails, what type of waterways do we have, and comparing it to Utah, Colorado, and North Carolina. And what we found is what we've kind of already known, at least those in the outdoor recreation field know, is that West Virginia can compete at that level with those states. Again, if you want to be a skier, Colorado and Utah are, the places. But we do have skiing here, but then we also have a lot of other. We are water rich. We've got great access to the outdoors, and we think we can absolutely we can grow that number from 1%.
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, if we're starting from 50th place, I think there's a lot of room for growth.
49. We're 49th place.
49. Yeah, thank God for Louisiana today. Sometimes it's Mississippi.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to see how we move up in the rankings. Where do you see the greatest potential for growth here, or how do you start when you're that low and yet we have such expansive resources? It's kind of hard to know what's going to give you the biggest bang for the buck, or is there some low-hanging fruit that hasn't been picked?
Yeah, so I think what our office is currently doing right now is continuing that asset mapping. And so we're taking a look at different communities throughout the state, and we're seeing what that proximity is to these rich outdoor activities. And what we have found is that people want it out their back door. And so they want to have it within that, that after work. So what's within 30 minutes to 60 minutes, from their work or their front door? What's, within an hour and a half, because that's easy to do on a Saturday morning. I could go recreate, and then I could get home and do the chores and things around the house, go grocery shopping, go to my kids' sports, games. So that is kind of what we're trying to look at, is how do we create an outdoor driven lifestyle where it's incorporated into life. And so that's where that 60, minute, hour and a half. And so we're starting to take a look at, from those community centers, how many climbs do you have? What are the quality of those climbs? How many trails do you have? What are the quality of those trails? Same thing with whitewater. Is, how far? How often does it run? That's a key piece. You might have it, but does it run frequently enough where it could be a sustainable part of your life? And so we're starting to do that around the state. And that's going to be a driver, a part of it. The other piece is we have to look at, obviously broadband is a component to it. We start thinking about access to transportation. We start looking at schools. So there's a tourism component to this, and there are certain communities that will thrive in that tourism area. But we're really looking at it from we want people to not leave the state. So we want to plug that bathtub so we're not at the bottom for people leaving, and we want to then fill it as well. And so in order to do that, we really think it has to be about livability. So then you start layering over what type of amenities that are really conducive to kind of the outdoor community, that young, vibrant, community. They really love the farm to table. They love the local foods. They love, having, access to good music. So it's all about creating this ecosystem that just builds off of each other. And so it's not one thing. It is a multi-layered approach, which obviously that's why we have to have a collaborative, because we need to tap into all those experts. And we don't feel that any community will have all of those today, and that's okay. But we want to work with those communities who are interested and providing support and guidance to help them get there to where they want to be. What do they want to be as a community? So we really want to take a community-driven approach, and we're very, very fortunate in this state to have so many different organizations and entities that have done such a great job in community development. So we're just trying to come in and help them with the outdoor components.
Right. I assume that access to healthcare and quality of education systems is also really key in this as additional criteria. So with all those different criteria, does that point you in certain directions for starting out?
It's starting to, and Brent, I'm not trying to avoid it. I don't think we're definitively there today, because as it sounds like there's, I mean, as you just highlighted, there's so many different components. It's not just if they have all of those components. It's, do the communities want this? Do they want to see this type of development in their area? And so, as you know, that creates, it takes time to build those relationships and that trust. And so that's what we're working on, is kind of that multifaceted. And, it's important to remember we're 9 months old. So we're very, very young in our infancy and, in our approach.
Right. Within a lot of those outdoor activities, that sometimes they can also be divided up according to certain demographics or age groups. And so whether you're trying to attract young professionals, 20-somethings, or you're looking at young families, or you're looking at retirees, I mean, those are also within those groups. There are different needs. I certainly know the drill about having to be back on Saturday afternoon to mow the lawn. But that's a particular demographic that may not apply to all the others. Do you have a demographic target that you're aiming to work for, or that you're looking to provide amenities for?
No, I think what we're really looking for, if you love the outdoors and you want to have an outdoor-driven lifestyle that has a West Virginia quality of life, that's who we're really looking for. And I think in order to do that, we have to take a look at those assets. And obviously, I think we need to lower some of the barrier of entry so we can get more people out utilizing those assets, but also make sure that they're inviting. We have to establish, good put-ins for our rivers that have signage that are welcoming. We have to have good trailheads with signage. We have to think about how do we develop that, because myself, I'm willing to go the extra mile to access those things. But if we're talking about those who are new into the activities, or just beginning, or they're trying to introduce, they're a little bit older and they're thinking about retirement, we have to lower that barrier of entry and create access. And access, comes in several different forms. So that's also something that we've really been thinking a lot about and working on, is thinking about those asset development. What recreation resources do we have, and how do we enhance them to be welcoming and inviting and inclusive?
Yeah. I know that trying to change the way that things are is sort of like turning a big ship, and I wouldn't want to over anticipate, but do you have a sense of, in 5 years, what you would call success for the collaborative?
Yeah, so what we've done is I've taken a look at several different communities, whether it is Asheville, where Ogden's in the middle of it, but we could take a look at Asheville, Bentonville. We can look at Salt Lake City, Denver. A lot of these communities, what we have seen is it's a 20-year initiative. What we have found is that typically they're seeing successes in years 5, 7, 10, and then 10 to 15 is kind of that unique spot for a lot of these communities. And then once we hit year 15, a lot of them are just rolling. They become those destinations, and we start seeing that influx of population. So for us, I think a couple things that would be very successful for us is that we've done a good job educating our state leaders and our local leaders on the potential, and that they are on board and they see this as the opportunity. So I think that's where we spend a lot of our energy today, is talking and communicating and sharing the potential. So I would love to see them start having megaphones on our behalf. So that would be a huge win for us. Second is, I would like to see us, working in a few communities that we can maybe use as pilots, but also as, hey, this is working in these communities and we're seeing measurable differences. once that starts happening, I firmly believe that we're going to have other communities and other parts of the state being like, oh, can you come help us? We're ready. We put these in places. So I think, having a couple communities moving and then having other communities coming to the table or wanting this. Those would be in 5 years. If we could be there, I would be celebrating, just celebrating in a very major way.
Okay, well, this is really great, Danny, to hear about. And Danny Twilley from WVU has been our guest. I think there's a great deal of potential here, and there's sort of a hand-in-glove fit with the West Virginia Land Trust. Just in the last year, we have acquired and transferred a piece of property in the town of Oak Hill that'll be the Needles Eye Climbing Park. We've acquired 860 acres in Tucker County, the Yellow Creek Natural Area. We just conserved 113 acres in Randolph County that will be an access point for fishermen and whitewater paddlers. And we just acquired 5,000 acres in Eastern Kanawha County that's going to be developed with support of the local town for great local economic recreation-based tourism and great for the residents as well. So I want to get you to all those places, Danny, so that we can be mapped as assets in your program, because I think they do offer a lot to that future recreation economy that you all are focusing on. So,
well, I look forward to going there with you and playing outdoors with you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk. And I can't tell you, I feel like we're building momentum, we're building energy, and the time is right. So I am beyond thrilled and excited for this opportunity.
All right. Well, great. If there's any way we can help out, you let us know. We've got those megaphones on your behalf.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Brent. And thanks, everyone.
Take care, Danny. Good night. Folks, this is part of our series where we're trying to draw attention to the ways that land protection can benefit West Virginia and its future and its residents. And we could use your help. As a nonprofit organization, the West Virginia Land Trust lives or dies based on donations that come to us. And if you agree that you think more places should be protected, or you think that there are greater opportunities that should be chased after in order to create these kinds of activities in our towns and in our cities that will prevent young people from leaving, that will draw new businesses into the area, then by all means, I hope you will give generously during this Special Places celebration. Go to our website, wvlandtrust.org/donate, and make a contribution. We're really grateful for your support. Thanks. Have a good evening.